you and I were getting ready for this show. I sent you over a rundown, and you said, hey, let's throw A&M in there. A&M's kind of had this 7-5, 8-4 label. I really like Mike Elko. Like, I look to the next 3 years of college football. I think they're a top 10 team. I think that we talk about resources. We talk about the staff and the structure and the culture and all those things. Like, I think Mike Elko brings exactly what they've been missing. I get that it's kind of unpopular to talk about them being a force in the SEC in college football, but like Mike Elko wasn't there for the 7-5s and the 8-4s as a head coach. Where are you on A&M?
Well, here's the thing. You're right. We can't blame Mike Elko for the failures of A&M in the past, but he got off to a great start, and then he just repeated the process.
Sure.
And yeah. I should have looked the stat up to get it exactly right, but shout out Brad Powers. He found this stat, and I've been quoting it all off season. I think it's 25 of the last 27 seasons. A&M has lost 4 or more games. 25 out of 27. So that's an A&M problem, and they have got to shed this 8. I call them Texas 8-4 now. I mean, how could you call them anything other than that? That's what they are every year, including last year where they were 7-1. They were in the driver's seat for the SEC championship. They were in the driver's seat for the college football playoff, and they lost every meaningful game starting in November.
But what does that mean it's an A&M problem? Because I'm looking at A&M, I'm like, okay, now they have a different AD, a different head coach, they got a different quarterback. Like, I don't think that the uniform is the problem. Like, I don't think the place is snake bitten. Like, they were also in a spot where, now granted, to your point, they came up short in the biggest moment, but they were also in a spot where if they beat Texas, they're in Atlanta, play for the college football playoff. Like, that in itself, your first year under new head coach, I'm sitting here saying, I love Texas A&M having that jumping off point under their first year in the Elko era. Like, that to me gives me a lot of confidence. They had a better season at A&M last year, as good a season, I should say, as Jimbo Fisher ever had at A&M if COVID never happened. Like, COVID was the one year where if you're an A&M fan, you're like, okay, hey, this is where we get excited. This is where things start to get rolling. But last year for Elko, like, they went 8-4, and that was as good a year as Jimbo Fisher ever had outside of the COVID year.
Yeah, speaking of COVID, I mean, it was such an outlier. Jimbo looked like a good coach that year. But, yeah, so it sounds like you're not superstitious, and I'm not necessarily either, but I'm a little stitious.
Okay.
And, yeah, again, 25 out of 27, 8-4. That's a program problem. And
well, what does that even mean?
We have seen someone get off to a hot start. We've seen Jimbo get off to a hot start. Remember, I think it was his second game. They took Clemson. That was, I think, a future national championship. They took him to the wire, and we're thinking, oh, God, he's got it rolling already at College Station, and yet they never get over that hump. And I don't know if the belief's there. I don't know if it's a cursed program, but they're right there with Texas. Haven't won a championship in forever. Have NIL, have all the resources, the facility. The stadium's fantastic. It may be a top 3 stadium in the SEC, if not the country, yet they cannot stop losing in critical situations. So you got to shed that somehow. And I don't know if there's demons in the building. They need to have an exorcism. I don't know if it's all those male cheerleaders they have. I don't know. They got to mix something up because, again, I believe the stat is 25 out of 27 years. They've lost 4 games or more, and that's unacceptable. And I think Mike Elko, it's way too early to put him into the elite category, but his early resume at Duke and the start they got at A&M suggests he is an elite coach. They're going to have all the talent in the world. This is a huge year for A&M. And now that Texas, they had a 12-year head start on them.
Yeah.
Never made the SEC championship. Texas makes it year 1. A&M still hasn't made it. Again, that's not a Mike Elko problem. That's an A&M problem.
It's an A&M problem to a degree, but I'm sitting here saying, speaking in Texas terms, a lot of people kind of thought the same thing about Texas for a while. And now they had the national title, so there's some differences there. But there was always this discussion around Texas of, well, it's just the logo is why they get thrown into the preseason conversation. There's always this preseason hype, and then Texas wins 7 games, win 8 games. Maybe it's real bad and they miss a bowl game like Steve Sarkisian's first year. But to me, the difference with Texas, how they got it right, how they fixed the Texas problem was they hired the right guy. And I'm sitting here from an A&M fan, I'm saying, scanning through the Tex Ags message boards, I think we hired the right guy, would be my feel. Like I said, brings culture, brings toughness. At Duke, he did way more than you should ever do as a Duke head coach. Like for them to win 9 games and to do with Riley Leonard what they did to get as far as they did, and him having success he had at Notre Dame. Like, I give Mike Elko even credit for that. So I see what you're saying. I have a hard time buying the
But everything you
the
just
idea
said,
that College Station snake bitten.
everything you just said, aside from toughness, we could say about Sumlin. We could say about Jimbo. They came in there. I mean, I never even heard of Kevin Sumlin until he was A&M coach. They caught the world on fire. Now, again, maybe we give most of that credit to Johnny Manziel now,
Sure.
but Kevin Sumlin was the coach. And the same thing, Jimbo. I mean, they were much improved right out the gate, and then it just fizzled. So the question is, will it fizzle again under Mike Elko? I'm not rooting for that, but 25 out of 27 suggests that is going to happen. So I don't know how. That's why I wanted to talk about this. I mean, it just feels like that program needs an exorcism or something.
It's a little stitious. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah, I mean, my one pushback on that when it comes to Jimbo is watching A&M with him as the head coach. I feel like I did not know who that team was. Like there was no identity. There was a plan, there was a strategy, but I couldn't sit down and give you adjectives that I felt like adequately described A&M. And I don't think that was something that you could sit me down and then have 10 other people sit down and give you the same adjectives. I think with Elko, it is structure, it is toughness, it is culture, which are all cliches. But again, I think that's what A&M's been missing. Now, I think what they're missing now is some poise and experience in those big moments. And you hope if you're an A&M fan, that pays off here in the future.
Well, I know for a fact, too, Jimbo got enamored with the stars. Shout out On 3 and the rest of the services. He wanted stars. He wanted 5 stars. How do they fit? Who cares? We want to be number one. And a lot of these coaches, Nick Saban included, blame Jimbo for how this is all come about. Blowing up the market, paying astronomical figures for these players before they've proven anything in college football. So, thanks, Jimbo. And he got, what, $90 million, whatever, to who knows what he's doing, but more power to him, you know?
You know what it is to probably get the bad juju out? They probably have to burn that national title plaque that they gave to him. Because what it said, like, national champs 20, and then it just had
fill in the date.
Fill in the blank. And I was like, man, I don't know if you want to do that. A&M fans or A&M folks, if you're listening, let's throw that in the trash. Let's light that on fire. Maybe we can kind of have
an exorcism with that statue. That's what we need to do. Get Billy Lucci to serenade the process.
Get him on the horn. Get Billy Lucci out there and make it happen.